Live from San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
How's it going, guys? Brian Alvarez here with Wrestling Observer Live. We're going to be flying solo for a few minutes here because Dave is not around. We actually don't know where he's at, but I would expect that he'll come right into the studio, time out of breath, and get back into this. But until then, got a lot of news to get into, and after the first commercial break, we'll start taking phone calls because already we have a full bank of calls for the show. First off, of course, Bobby, he'll be the guest on the show today. Bobby Heenan, of course, one of the greatest managers of all time, and of course, one of the commentators for years for WWF and WCW. And of course, you can talk to him about his time in WCW, which he said in his book was, I believe, the worst 6 years of his life. And there's going to be there is this week a complete review of his new book in The Observer, and we'll give you some ordering information on The Observer and the Figure 4 later on in this show. Of course, the top stories for this week on Monday Night Raw and the gay wedding on SmackDown, which ended up not being a gay wedding after all because it was revealed that they are not gay and there was no wedding. It was crashed. And, of course, the HLA segment, tons of negative feedback on it. And, in fact, we got more negative feedback on this show than probably any show that I can remember. And it actually was not the highest-rated segment of the Raw show. The match with Hunter and Spike Dudley actually did better than the HLA segment, which did pick up a bit. But afterwards, I believe it was 200,000 people turned off the show and never turned it back on. But despite all that, Vince McMahon did enjoy the segment, and he defended it last night. And the plan is to go forward with the HLA. In fact, most of you probably know by now that the WWE website had something up where you could choose a design for an HLA T-shirt. And I guess there were two of them up there. One included a pair of female lips in a box, and that equals HLA. And, of course, most of you, I'm sure, know what that means. But anyway, they're going to go forward with that, so they're going to be HLA T-shirts, probably more HLA on Raw, and it just seems to be another example of Vince McMahon feeling that controversy is what makes the WWF go round and round, and I guess he sees this as, I guess actually that the feeling like in 1997 or 1998 they turned everything around, and he really thinks that this is it, so they're going to go forward with that. And we're going to be heading to a break right now. We'll talk more about all of these top stories when we get back. This is Brian Alvarez on the Sports Byline Radio Network.
Bret Hart. It's Wrestling Observer Live with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Two guys who eat, sleep, and drink pro wrestling, even when it doesn't taste good.
Hey guys, back here on Wrestling Observer Live. This is Brian Alvarez. We're going to go over a couple more news notes, and then we'll get into the phone calls. We got a full bank we talked about earlier. The Thursday SmackDown show was, of course, highlighted by the wedding angle, which was Rico and Billy and Chucky. Billy and Chucky, of course, supposedly getting married, and they had a big press tour leading up to this, pretty much on all the, actually got mentioned everywhere, ESPN, the New York Post. Eric Bischoff held up some of the articles on Raw to plug it, and the idea, or the angle was that Billy and Chuck were doing this as a publicity stunt, which was what they pretty much said they were doing in all the radio interviews anyway, and the angle was that Rico really wanted them to get married and double-crossed them in the ring. And it turned out that the Justice of the Peace who was marrying them was actually Eric Bischoff in disguise. And most of the people that saw this site, so they weren't surprised about it, but from talking to people that had not read the spoilers, it came as a total shock that Eric Bischoff was actually the Justice of the Peace because they did a hell of a makeup job on him, and he did a very good job of acting as the Justice of the Peace. Kind of a little over the top, but I thought it was pretty good. And anyway, Bischoff took the mask off, and the Island Boys hit the ring and destroyed Billy and Chuck and Stephanie, and they were about to give her the big splash when the locker room emptied, the good guys and the bad guys ran out to make the save, and I guess Rico now will be heading to Raw as a heel, and hopefully with somewhat of a makeover and a push on that show as their talent depth on Raw, contrary to just the stronger show top to bottom, just the work rate on SmackDown, to me, totally blows that show away. So Rico will be a good addition because he's a good worker. So anyway, that was the big angle on SmackDown. Came off better than I expected, and I'd like everybody's thoughts calling in tonight, what they thought of the angle, and of course, the HLA segment as well. EMLL ran their Final Justice pay-per-view. Actually, I don't think it was a pay-per-view, but it was their big Arena Mexico show on Friday night, headlined by Tarzan Boy beating Negro Casas in a hair versus hair match. 18,000 fans at Arena Mexico with 5,000 turned away. And apparently, in the main event, a fan hit the ring. There was no security at ringside. And Tarzan actually finished the match with the fan in the ring and then chased the fan into the street. Of that show, Los Guerreros, beat Shocker and Vampiro to retain the tag titles. And afterwards, I believe Shocker challenged Guerrero to a mask versus hair match, which was accepted, which will be a huge match in Mexico. And I believe the plan also is probably to go with Vampiro versus Universo dos Mil for the heavyweight title in that program there. TNA show is returning this Wednesday night. They've been off for the past several weeks now. They've had taped shows, the X Division, the Special X pay-per-view, which was highlights of the X Division, of course.
Brian.
Yay, what's going on?
Not too much. How you doing?
You've made it.
Oh, my God.
Is it the Giants game?
Giants game, 49ers game. I was about, I'd say 5 miles away. And boy.
Well, that sucks.
Boy, does that suck. Anyway, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
That's good.
Going over all the main stories, talked about the HLA thing, the SmackDown thing. And
the HLA, it's continuing.
Yes, it will continue.
It will continue tomorrow night. I don't know if Vince McMahon is insane or he's brilliant. And, of course, he's had moments of both. Just not too many moments of one of them in the last 18 months. And what can I say?
I'll just always remember that segment that he did on Bob Costas where he made it so clear that he's a businessman and he takes risks. And I think that, you know, he so wants to take risks that he takes risks that maybe are smart. So.
Well, I mean, the way I look, I mean, he's desperate, okay?
Yeah.
His ratings are going down, and he has no confidence in wrestling to pick him up. And certainly on Raw, I mean, what are you going to do with wrestling on Raw anyway? I mean, you have guys who don't know anything about wrestling writing the show. You don't have a lot of good wrestlers on the show.
You know, he so wants to take risks that he takes risks that maybe are smart. So.
Well, I mean, the way I look, I mean, he's desperate, okay?
Yeah.
His ratings are going down, and he has no confidence in wrestling to pick him up. And certainly on Raw, I mean, what are you going to do with wrestling on Raw anyway? I mean, you have guys who don't know anything about wrestling writing the show. You don't have a lot of good wrestlers on the show. So he came up with this idea, and he's talking about it. He's got this buzz, and he thinks that's good. You know, I mean, it's the typical example. Well, we'll find out. But it seems to me to be the typical example of not knowing the difference between X-Pac heat and Buddy Rogers heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I don't even know how they can continue it because, you know, the whole HLA thing on the show this week was, you know, Bischoff brought out these two women, and then he destroyed them, and it was all a big, I guess, for believing that they were actually going to see lesbian action on Raw.
Well, they did.
And, well, I guess they sort of did. And, you know, where do they go now? How do they explain more lesbians next week?
Well, I don't know exactly. You know, I mean, I think they're just going to replay it and try to make it a big issue or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, yeah. That's quite interesting. We're going to have Bobby Heenan up in just a couple of minutes, by the way. So that should be a lot of fun show. Too bad I didn't get here on time.
Yeah?
Did you watch Confidential last night?
I heard all about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
It was interesting because, you know, I mean, Vince looked like he was 100 years old and, you know, trying to, you know, do his justifications. You know, and I mean, he made some, you know, it's like, you know, entertainment be what we want to be, and sports people don't want us to be what we want to be. But but we're gonna please our fans. Unfortunately,
which is funny because if you look at the rating the last 2 weeks, they have not been pleasing their fans.
No, well,
particularly in that segment.
What you mean, Confidential or in Raw?
The HLA deal.
Well,
everyone that turned off the TV afterwards.
Well, they turned off the TV after the wedding thing on Thursday, too. Maybe it was just, they hyped the whole show around one segment, and when that segment's over, nobody wants to see wrestling.
Well, see, what I've never really understood is the point of building something up to pop 1/4 hour radio. I've never figured that out because okay, great.
Well, if it's
immediately tuned out.
If it's the last quarter hour, I think that's a good idea because theoretically you keep people hooked until that thing at the last quarter hour. When you build the whole show around something and you put it in the middle of the show, and then you haven't hyped anything afterwards, then people are going to tune out. They think, well, we've seen a big thing on this show.
Yeah.
So
if it's at the end of the show, I mean, there's really no guarantee they're going to tune in the next week. I mean, if you put it in the middle and they all tune out afterwards,
well,
you can say that if you put it at the end, they're going to tune in the next week.
Well, I think the part of the thing is for certainly for the wedding thing, you didn't want to put it in the end because the people live would revolt. That's the end of the show. Where's our main event? Although
you could do it after the taping ended.
Yeah. Oh, you can do a match after taping ended. That's true. You're right. Anyway, let's go ahead one call before we have to hit a break. We're going to go to Ed on.
Hey, guys. What I'd like to ask about is a program that I'm patiently waiting for is the Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle.
Uh-huh.
And when they do have this program, what I personally would really like to see in their match is like a very heavily influenced amateur wrestling. I'm talking maybe 50%. And what I was wondering is, other than WrestleMania, do you think the crowd would get into that kind of match?
Oh, if it's built up right and it goes in with the right hype, absolutely.
I mean, they already did that on their first match.
Yeah, that's what they started out doing. Doing a lot of amateur.
Angle Benoit.
Yeah, similar to the Angle Benoit match from was it WrestleMania when they did all the amateur? Yeah.
Yeah, I was at that WrestleMania and I really liked that match. I remember I called in on that show. That's what I want to see. It's just that with the fan base today, I'm kind of worried that they won't get into it.
They will, with a properly promoted main event, a slow build they'll get into. If it's a poorly promoted match that they don't care about and the wrong crowd, sure, they may not.
You know what kind of makes me sad is I watched Confidential and I realized how few people actually watch that show. And I think that if like on Raw they took out some of the stuff that almost everybody except maybe Vince would say was really stupid and put in maybe some of those segments that they put on Confidential that guys would maybe start to get over. And things like this would start to get over. Because I mean, look at all the things they've done with Angle in his amateur background and Brock in his amateur background. I mean, if they'd shown those things on Raw or have spots like that in a match, but instead they put it on this show on Saturday night at 11 o'clock that nobody ever watches except the most hardcore fans who already know that these guys can do this anyway. And it seems like such a waste.
How'd you like the history of the world title?
I got to watch it.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I just thought it was very interesting. They made, they had Ric Flair, Big Show. Was it
mentioning all those names like Dusty and Goldberg? Well,
the thing is, nobody had anything bad to say about Dusty, even though he killed Jim Crockett Promotions. But boy, nobody had anything good to say about Bill Goldberg.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Bill Goldberg's the one who can draw them some money.
Yeah.
But they're so, that's the typical thing. They have no long-term vision of this business that they sit here and it's like, I'm a child and I'm in a bad mood and I don't like Bill Goldberg because God, he went to Japan and we're going to just rip him, not realizing that, he's going to come in at some point more likely than not. And, ripping him does no good. And it's just like when Austin left. We all know now they would beg to have Steve Austin back. I mean, that's the reality. They would beg to have him back and they've damaged him greatly by spending all that time burying him on the way out. It's very similar. I actually wrote something about this not all that long ago about Jim Londos, which is like an 80-year-old story. But he was like the biggest drawing card in New York of all time up until, the Bruno era. So this is in the early 30s. And he had a big fight with the booker. And he walked out, and they buried him in the newspaper. It's like he walked out. He was afraid of Dick Sheekat, this and that. And then when their business went to heck, and when they brought him back, there was a big pop when he came back, but it was never the same because all those people had heard all those horrible things about Jim Londos. Anyway, we got to go head to a break right now. We're going to come back with a whole bunch of phone calls. We'll also get Heenan up on the line. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And if you're interested in information on how to get either of those publications, you can go to www.wrestlingobserver. Already know that anyway. But we have two really interesting issues this week, especially probably because there's going to be a lot more coming from WWE over the next two TV tapings on the new attempt to emulate 1998. We're going to head right to the phone calls. We're going to start with Alan in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Alan, how you doing?
I was waiting, actually, to talk to the brain, but...
Oh, well, got you first.
Oh. Well,
what's going on?
Well, hey, how's it going?
Good.
What I was going to do is ask Bobby, actually, about the demise of WCW.
It's dead.
Well, we know that. But what is he attributed to?
Oh, well, we'll ask him about that. He'll have a lot to say about that. Don't worry.
And, been always wondering, why in the book he put over Hogan so strongly.
We've already been over this.
Yeah, but I mean, there was never any situation he's going to say right now.
We'll talk. We'll ask him about Hogan. Don't worry.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
Good enough.
Thank you, man.
Let's go to Matt in Boston. Matt, what's happening?
Hey guys, I wanted to talk about New Japan.
Okay.
The Makai mask. Is that what you say?
Makai Club, the mask guys.
Yeah, I was wondering who number 2 and 4 would be. It's rumored that Alexander Otsuka. Oh, that's probably wrong saying it. Yuki Ishikawa. Yeah.
It's possible. I haven't seen all of them. I just know Murakami's going to be one of them.
Yeah, he already unmasked actually.
Yes. Okay. So that could be those two.
And about All Japan, Muto defeats Goldberg after Goldberg would, I guess, defeat Tenryu.
Yeah.
How is Goldberg going through Kojima and Kea, then Muto pinning him actually good for All Japan? Muto wasn't the guy long term.
I really don't think Goldberg will lose till his last match.
Yeah, which would probably be against Muto, not Kojima, who should be.
Oh, it's not going to be. He's not going to lose to Kojima.
No, but that would be, a good way to put Kojima over.
It would be. Well, I mean, if it's in a couple of years, they may do it. I can't see it happening now. So.
I kind of suspect he'll just, win the Triple Crown, beat some guys, and then someone will beat him at the end, and that'll be the end of him.
Or he'll be there forever, like Stan. He may be there forever, like Stan Hansen.
Yeah.
I was wondering about if he's going to be able to come back for October 27th show.
Last I heard, it was touch and go. I haven't heard anything further. I don't know. Let's see, would he be interesting to see if he could go to do the tag team tournament?
Yeah, well, I think he's not going to come back for October. Maybe he'll just wait till like the spring to be fully healed or something.
I would think if he didn't come back in October, he would come back. Let's see, if they're going to do the Yokohama Arena, he could come back in November for one, or he could come back at the December Budokan, just as part of a kind of a garnish for the tag team tournament, and then come back full time in January. Yeah.
Have you heard about the Hashimoto Otani feud that are starting up now?
I have not heard about that. No, they just do that like today or yesterday.
Yeah, no, I think it's newer. Really, Otani wants to overthrow Hashimoto, and I think this could possibly go to New Japan because they talked about that as well. Joining Yasuda's group and starting 0-1 versus New Japan.
Hashimoto and New Japan are not on good terms right now.
Yeah.
Although, the way the business works there, that can change on a dime, too. I mean, anything's possible. Otani's big heat with New Japan was with Choshu, and Choshu's not even in the organization. So, him going back, with some kind of a angle, that makes perfect sense, and God, New Japan could use him. But it would, 0-1 is just starting to get its own identity, so I don't know that right now would be the right time for them to be doing the program with New Japan.
Any ideas on the spot, the Stone Show matches? They say they want to go with the Yasuda group versus New Japan, but that's the ruined match. But that's not really going to draw anything. I mean, think about it.
No, they're scared, believe me, because they have nothing that's going to draw. And the Yasuda group, 6 on 6 or something. Ugh.
Logically, they should do Noah versus New Japan. If you think about it, they could have Kobashi versus Chono or something. And that would do all right, especially Kobashi coming over because Kobashi's never done it. I don't know. Kobashi has looked a lot better in the last couple of weeks, so he's getting there. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's any movement in that direction, though. All right, guys, thanks.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to Mike in West Palm Beach. Mike, what's going on?
Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, I got 3 questions to ask you, and I want to know if I can ask them. They moved the announce table on Raw. Now, do you think Eric's going to change it from Raw to Nitro?
No, because I think that Vince McMahon hates the name Nitro.
That word, Nitro.
Yeah, although they're doing a lot of stuff I wouldn't think they would have done before, but no, they're not going to change. He loves the name Raw. He hates the name Nitro. I don't think he's going to make that change.
Do you think Eric's there to try to do something to Vince or destroy the company in any way?
No, Eric has no power.
Eric goes to work, he does his job, and he goes home.
Yeah, Eric.
I heard Vince called him to come there to help him get ratings.
No, Vince called him to be an actor to play the role of a guy to come there and get ratings. But he's just an actor doing whatever script they do, and he's not complaining about anything that they ask him to do. And Eric's going to be in a lot of embarrassment, just fine with it. Because he's getting paid.
Do you think Goldberg's going to come anytime soon?
Right now, there's no movement in that direction, but I could see it happening at any time because, they need something like that. And
Goldberg and Brock at WrestleMania. I think that would draw mega money.
I think it would too, but I'm not sure. You know, there's just a lot of issues from the reaction of the wrestlers to, you know, people thinking what's fair. I could just see a lot of things, you know, plus guys not wanting Goldberg to get over that could derail it. But yeah, I think that potentially, I think it's the biggest money match on the horizon.
How come Vince doesn't bring more talent in, like from TNA? Offer these guys. These guys
like who?
Unbelievable.
Like who?
AJ Styles.
Loki doesn't fit in WWE style. AJ Styles is good. You know, they offered AJ Styles something, but, you know, AJ Styles is, you know, if you look at the cruiserweights that WWE has like Rey Mysterio and Jamie Noble and, you know, you know, go right through to Tajiri. Those guys are all a lot more talented than AJ Styles. It's just AJ, you know, you don't really notice it because they're not, you know, they're not featured as much, but they're a lot better workers. No, I mean, AJ's good. I like him, but he's not even in the league with Tajiri.
When I watch it, and when I see the amazing Red and stuff, damn, why they...
Well, Red's a good acrobat, but again, if you watch his basics, if he went to WWE, the WWE fans would watch those transitions and just like think, you know, like they did with Cena and go, oh, he's too green and he wouldn't get over. Not yet. I mean, 3 years from now, Red might be a superstar.
Hey, thanks.
Okay, very welcome. Anything to add to that, Brian?
No, I was just saying, actually, Ray, I would say, is just as not WWE style as Low-Key would be, except Low-Key kicks people a lot harder.
Yeah, but he doesn't, it's not the physical thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and Ray's a super worker, you know, as far as knowing how to sell and a lot of things like that.
I mean, Low-Key to me would be like a Ray or a Rob Van Dam. He's a guy that's so different that I think it would work. But they would have to. But they would have to. They would have to sit there and go, okay, we are going to push him hard. If they just send him out there to flounder, he'll flounder. Yeah.
You know.
Velocity or whatever the hell the show is now.
Yes. We got Bobby Heenan on the line. Bobby, what's going on?
I've been up for 18 hours waiting for this call. How you doing? Nothing. Just watching the Oakland-Pittsburgh game.
Oh, okay. What? How's the touring going? I know you were out there promoting your book, Bobby the Brain, Wrestling's Bad Boy. Bad Boy Tells All. It just came out in the last month or so. Tell us a little bit about the touring.
It's going good.
What's going on?
I've been up for 18 hours waiting for this call. How you doing? Nothing. Just watching the Oakland-Pittsburgh game.
Oh, okay. What? How's the touring going? I know you were out there promoting your book, Bobby the Brain, Wrestling's Bad Boy Tells All. It just came out in the last month or so. Tell us a little bit about the touring.
It's going good. We went to Minneapolis. I went to the State Fair and promoted it there, and we went to a book sale signing that night at a mall, and we sold out. You know, selling out isn't like millions of people. It's not like you think that you know, you're going to do 25, 30,000. What it is you do a couple hundred books because people order. But for they thought it was tremendous, and we went to Chicago and did a couple hundred. And, you know, I'm only there for 2 hours, but the response has been really great, and you know, I'm happy. I'm really happy with it.
How familiar, you know, how much wrestling right now, we talked a little bit about this earlier, how much wrestling right now are you watching? You're not,
None.
What?
None.
None?
None.
You saw Brock Lesnar, though, didn't you? Did you see Brock Lesnar recently, though?
I don't know him personally. I've just seen him on TV as I'm channel surfing and everything. But I don't tune in to see an 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Raw or a SmackDown or anything like that. I'm just not interested.
Any specific reason for that?
I think it's a product because I'm a 57-year-old guy and been in the business 40 years, and it's not what I'm used to. This is more like X Games with skateboards. And these guys have so much talent, but they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to take their character to another level. And it's not for me. Maybe it's because it passed me by, but there is an audience for it and a market, and I think it's going to be good. But for me, my interests are not there right now.
What have you been doing as far as besides with wrestling? I mean, how's the health coming along? You pretty much how's the fight?
I feel good. I feel better every week, and I get tired sometimes easy. But other than that, no. And there's some words I can't say yet, but that's why they gave us fingers. But other than that, no, I feel pretty good. Hey, I'm alive, you know. What have I got to bitch about? I've done things nobody else has done. I was in the hospital. I saw kids with no hair, with IVs in their arms. You couldn't say, hi, sweetheart, hi, young man, because you don't know if they're girls or boys because of the way they look. They haven't even thrown a ball yet or been slapped in the back seat of a car or had a buzz on. I mean, I've done all that. That's what's important. None of this is important to me. I'm just glad that I'm alive and I can write a book and go out and have some fun. That's all I care about.
This will probably take, it's probably like a long question. We'll probably do it after the break. But a lot of people, in fact, we had a call about this. And one of the more interesting things about the book was your discussion of your tenure in WCW. In fact, why don't we head to a break right now, and we're going to come back and talk about Bobby Heenan's tenure in WCW and the demise of WCW. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, the Brain Heenan, whose book, Bobby the Brain, Wrestling's Bad Boy Tells All, just came out about a month or so ago. It's doing very well. At the last time I checked, which was about a week ago, it was the best-selling pro wrestling book, which actually there's only two really good-selling pro wrestling books right about now, which is the one by Bobby Heenan and the one by Shawn Asale about Vince McMahon. And Bobby, you know, right before the break, because we were talking about the demise of WCW, the 6-year demise of WCW from when you got there until it finally ended, which included a couple of years where it did incredible business. What were, you know...
Dave, before we talk about this, I have to do one thing.
Yes.
Before I talk about WCW, okay?
Okay.
Bear with me. Okay, guys.
Okay. Bobby, you know, in the book, and, you know, you talked about this in other places as well, there was a night in the Georgia Dome, and actually the week before when they beat Goldberg, but the night in the Georgia Dome, there were 40,000 people to Georgia Dome, and at the end of that show, you and Mike Tenay looked at each other and said, this is going down. And Tony Schiavone, tell us about what Tony Schiavone, it's all in the book and everything. It was a great story.
Yeah, they couldn't see it. You know, the trouble with WCW was it was run by people that didn't know wrestling. When I say wrestling, if you want wrestling, go to Iowa State and look at Dan Gable. If you want entertainment, athletic entertainment, then watch WWE and the wrestling we provided over the years. Entertain. I mean, they had a guy like Goldberg, and they didn't know what to do with him. Not a thing. He was in Atlanta one time, and we had a show at the Georgia Dome, and Mark McGuire was in town with the St. Louis Cardinals. And McGuire's an old friend of mine, and we used to do a lot of banquets together. And he likes to work out, so he wanted to meet Goldberg. So Goldberg came over to Turner Field. McGuire ripped his shirt off and rubbed his bat on his chest, and went up that year and hit 70 home runs. Now, Vince would have had film of McGuire in Louisville picking up a slugger. We never aired anything or showed anything like that. They had James Brown at the Cow Palace in San Francisco when her gimmick where he was the dancer, the James Brown, the Godfather of Soul. And we had James Brown there, and they didn't want to announce him. They just wanted him to walk out, and their mentality was that the people will hear what they missed, and they'll never miss another pay-per-view.
They wanted to swerve people. Me and Brian talk about that all the time.
Now, wouldn't you want to have him on every radio and television station you could in town? And they'd love to have the guy, and for what they were paying him, take advantage of his name and publicity. Then, do you put the tag team belts on Mrs. Bagwell? Do you give the world's title to Charlie Weaver's kid? Grandkid? I mean, you get rid of me because you want a younger look and you hire Madden? That's like giving a guy a tuna fish can and telling him to do a vasectomy. It don't make sense. It just don't make sense.
Deal was, if they didn't see the pay-per-view that something big happened on, they would just buy all of them from that point forward?
Well, I don't know. They never talked to you. You didn't have any idea. It was like working for Joey Buttafuoco. You didn't know the bumper from the trunk. That's the truth. I mean, it sounds funny and silly, but it's the only way I can say it. They couldn't sound their ass with both hands.
You know, in the book, you would never mention the name, as far as I could tell, maybe you did, Annette Yadler. And is there, what was your thought? I guess of the people, when I read the book, I got the sense that of all the people in that company, she may have bothered you more than anyone.
Oh, no.
Oh, no?
They're all tied.
Oh, they're all, okay.
No, she was a makeup girl.
Yeah.
And then they promoted her to a producer. She couldn't produce a fart at a bean festival. I mean, I'm serious. She was a makeup girl that couldn't put lipstick. She thought she had 3 lips. She just was incompetent. But it wasn't her fault because she was put in that position, but who didn't know what they were doing.
Can I ask why? Why was she put in that position?
Pardon?
Why was she put in that position?
Because I guess nobody else wanted her, or they thought she could do a good job, or who knows what they thought.
So they just said, hey, let's get the makeup lady.
She was the makeup lady. I had her paint Mount Rushmore. but she had no qualifications to produce a television program. She would come out sometimes and say, hey, this is the last week going in, the pay-per-view's this Sunday. Now you guys hit it hard. Well, what do you think we've been doing? Talking about the Super Bowl or NASCAR, you moron? And that's the kind of people you have to deal with. And then during the day, you see people wouldn't say hello to you. They never say during the broadcast, nice job, great, I'm glad you did this, I'm glad you did that. They never gave you a format. Sometimes it wouldn't come out until the second match. We didn't know what was going on. Schiavone always did, but he'd never tell you. There was another girl there named Wendy something, and she would put the staples on the bottom side of the right-hand corner. Even the Chinese don't read that one.
Wasn't that Wendy Turnbuckle?
Yes! I mean, toilet paper comes off the roll one way. It's so simple.
Now when things, let's say like 90 things were going good there financially, were you just kind of sitting there and watching it every week? I mean, did you pretty much know it was like, I don't know if you want to call it luck or a fluke or it just happened, but I mean, luck?
Well, first of all, you have to understand Vince McMahon, his baby is the WWE. He gave birth to it, he cut the cord, he slapped it on the ass. That's his baby. Eric Bischoff took over from Bill Watts, F.C. Rose, and Ole Anderson, people that were no longer in the business, or were good at what they did that some people thought. I didn't say they weren't good. I'm saying, obviously they weren't. They weren't there, so someone thought they weren't good. Eric came there as an announcer and wasn't that good at that. The cord, he slapped it on the ass. That's his baby. Eric Bischoff took over from Bill Watts, F.C. Rose, and Ole Anderson, people that were no longer in the business, or were good at what they did that some people thought. I didn't say they weren't good. I'm saying, obviously they weren't there, so someone thought they weren't good. Eric came there as an announcer and wasn't that good at that, so now he has access to Ted's wallet. So he hires Hogan. He hires all the Lucha Libres, who in Los Angeles, the #1 television station and radio station, are Spanish. So he's right there. He's playing the game with somebody else's money. A success is if you do it for 20 years like Vince. But no, not for a year and a half. That's luck. Where are they now?
That's a good question. Everyone's struggling to find some.
Just like Jim Barnett on Vince's show. And, I mean, why are you there? He's going to get spanked. Some book in your pants, pal. But no, I never was in charge of a company or could do anything like that. But you could just tell that you just don't put the belt on Mrs. Bagwell.
What did you, when you were announcing, was there anything, when you talk about putting the belt on Mrs. Bagwell, or I guess there was things every week now that I think about it, because I remember our reaction, but was there anything where you just said, okay, these guys, where did these guys learn their wrestling from?
I'll tell you, the first 6 months I was there, I asked Eric one time, I said, let's you and I, at the end of the day, we were in Atlanta, and there's a little sports club there called Jack and Jill's. I said, let you and I go there afterwards and have a few pops and talk and get to know each other. He said, I'm not a very person. And then I had an idea one night. We were in Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon, and it was the Nasty Boys against, at that time it was Cactus Jack and Max Payne. And I said, why don't you have Gene Okerlund just open up and you can hear a siren wailing and you can see lights flashing, but you're real tight on Gene and you pull back and he's in an ambulance and he's going to ringside. And Eric said, Bobby, you're just an announcer. We'll do all that.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I got my pay. Gave me 2 raises, 3 really. He didn't even know what to pay me when I managed Aaron and Flair against Mongo and Kevin Green. I said, just give me another year. So he gave me another year. I mean, we're talking silly putty here. So the reason I didn't say anything and bow my neck or back or quit was because for the first time in my life, I had insurance for my family. Since 1965, I've never had medical insurance or anything. So if something happened to me, I had to go in my pocket. My cancer operation with my chemo and radiation cost $300,000. My wife Cindy's, with hers without chemo, with just radiated cancer in 5 years, was another $200,000. So that's $500,000. So let's say I have it. That's $500,000 you sure don't want to give out. If I don't have it, now I got to mortgage the kid.
Yeah.
So we never had any benefits or anything. And then that's why I went there, was to get insurance. The only reason. So I took whatever they put on the plate, because you couldn't change it because there was 25 people in charge. One day it was Kevin Sullivan, the next day it was Terry Taylor. Sometimes it was Jimmy Hart. Sometimes it was a woman that sold corn dogs at the concession stand.
Mm-hmm.
You're new. It was bizarre, but I had insurance. I'm going to ride this sucker out. But when you would try to help and try to, I mean, I'm not saying anything that would put me over. I don't care about getting over. I wanted to get talent over. That was my job. And they wouldn't care. They couldn't care. And they wouldn't speak to you. They never said hello, good morning, nothing. It was the worst place I'd ever worked in my life.
How much of your background do you think Eric Bischoff really knew about?
I think he wanted me to be more like a Kurt Gowdy. But you have to understand Bobby Heenan's character. Not Ray Heenan, Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan is an ex-used car salesman and pointer. If you fall down on the ice, an old woman, he'll help her up, but he'll steal her wallet. He'll go to a restaurant and take the tips off tables. That's the kind of a character he is. He's a weasel.
Bobby, we got to go head to a break right now. We're going to come back with more with Bobby the Brain Heenan. By the way, you can call us at 1-878-PLAY. We actually have one line open. We'll start getting the phone calls for Bobby right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Brian Alvarez, Figure 4 Weekly, and our news just come out. And Bobby, there were a couple of wrestlers who wrestled out here in the Bay Area that you were very, very familiar with when they wrestled more in the Midwest. And I wanted to ask you about Pepper Gomez in particular, because some of your stories about working with Pepper Gomez just had me in stitches.
He's a wonderful guy. He really is. My mother loves him. My wife loves him. I love him. He's really a great guy. Tease him about being short.
Yeah.
But, he likes that because he's short. Who's he going to call? He can't reach the phone.
You were saying about, I guess...
take him on a road trip, I bring a phone book. He said, what's that for? He said, in case you want to sit down and look out the window.
Now, what was it like? You were you managed Ray Stevens for years and years with Pat Patterson and also with Nick Bockwinkel. And they were, in the book you kind of put them over as maybe the best tag team that you ever managed. What in your mind made them stand out, Patterson and Stevens?
Because they weren't selfish. They went into that ring and they had the mentality to know what the fans wanted. There's only a couple things you have to do with a heel. You have to be sneaky, you have to be a coward, and you have to take bumps. That's all you have to do. It's that simple. It's good against bad. And Ray and Pat And Pat Patterson, for some reason, I like to apologize to Pat because I knew Ray before I knew Pat. Pat is equally as great a worker as there's ever been in this business. And no, they were just so much fun to work with. We'd laugh in the ring, we'd talk, we laughed before. We went to a 6-man tag when in Denver, Pat, Ray and I and Nick. And I said, I just got here late. I didn't get to finish. So that's just the way we operated. And they were so much professional. They never thought, well, it's a small town tonight. I'm not going to do anything tonight. And they gave me the same mentality. I took the same bumps from Louis Martinez in Hammond, Indiana, as I took from Vern Gagne or Hulk Hogan in the Garden.
We've got to run to our hourly break. We're going to start taking phone calls for Bobby Heenan right after this. We've got a full bank of phone calls for those of you who are... Just hold on. We're going to get to you right after this break. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez.
Are you ready?
Let's get it on.
Hey, we're here for the second hour here of Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bobby the Brain Heenan. Bobby, real quick, why don't you tell everyone how they can get a copy of your book?
Well, first of all, I'll do that. But let me say one thing, because your producer told me if I do this, he'll give me $14. I want you to listen to Dave and Brian here on the Sports Byline Radio Network. The wrestling. If you're smart like the Brain, you'll do it. Now, if I'm supposed to meet him out back in a half hour for the money, but he's okay with it, right? No, go ahead.
Okay, tell us real quick how everyone can get a hold of your book.
You go to the bookstore, you can go to Amazon.com and pump up Bobby the Brain. It's in like books and all the bookstores now, and you just go in and you reach in your pocket and you pull out some green stuff and dead presidents and give it to them.
Are you gonna do you have any cities that you're going to anytime soon, or is the major touring over?
No. What happened was we started the tour at the end, and when the book was coming out in the end of August, and then Labor Day came, so that's a holiday, and my publicist went on vacation, and Monday he'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to talk, and they're going to put a tour up through Florida, and they're going to do one from Baltimore, Philly, New York, and Boston. And then they were talking about going a little more out to the Midwest, Denver, then the West Coast.
Oh, so you're going to be going all over the next month or two, then?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's hardly book sales in the months of November and December because most bookstores don't have book sales because they have so much traffic anyway with Christmas. So I'm not sure how that's going to go yet. This is a whole new thing to me.
You know, in your book...
One more thing, that Annette, the makeup girl,
yes.
I'm not putting her down because she was incompetent. She shouldn't have had the job. It's like you can't hire me to be an astronaut or to coach hockey. And this poor woman was put in a position she knew nothing about, and I guess try to do her best. But, like I told my wife when we had an argument one day, I said, hey, if your kid's any better, you'll...
Now, one thing I read in your book that I had never heard before, and then you were talking about, like, guys going on the road and going, like actually wanting to put on a bad show in WCW.
Oh, yeah. There was a town called Gainesville, Georgia. Used to do TV out of there. And it never drew anything. But guys were on paper. They were on contract. It didn't matter if there was 4 people there or 40,000. And they just didn't want to be there because there was nobody in the house. They just weren't mentally that smart. So they said, we'll go out and go 2 minutes and kill it. Well, I learned a long time ago that I've been to places. I was in Yankton, South Dakota once, in the house. And I had bladed myself the night before in Denver or so. And I think I'm wrestling Buck Zumhoff. And so I had him throw me out of the ring. I had him beat my head on the table. And I popped myself open. I go back to the dressing room, and I forget who it was. And they said, why are you working this hard? There's nobody out there. I said, well, it's not those people's fault that there's nobody out there. The reason there's nobody out there, it may be my fault. Because maybe I didn't do a good enough interview to make the people come out. But because those people came out, they deserve the same entertainment as they would get at Madison Square Garden. And that's just the way I always felt about it. Because the wrestling fans, and I'm not sucking up to them, but my daughter through college, they buried my mother, they fed me all these years, and Bobby Heenan's a character. I'm really a nice guy. I'm just an actor.
Bobby, we've got to head to a break right now. We're going to come back with phone calls for Bobby Heenan right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bobby Heenan. We've got a full bank of phone calls for Bobby, so let's get right to them. We're going to go to Rob in Little Rock, Arkansas. Rob, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much.
I just wanted to talk about the OVW show. Have you got a chance to see it yet?
No, I haven't seen a tape of it, no. Just what Jim Cornette said about it last week is all I really know about it.
I got a tape of it this week. It's a great show.
Really? Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Benoit and Basham. Great match.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering what your thoughts were, but...
I haven't seen it. Brian, have you seen it?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I wanted to talk about, guys.
Okay, we're going to go to Chris in Savannah, Georgia. Chris, what's going on?
Not much, fellas. I wanted to ask about Confidential, and one comment I found quite amusing was made by Booker T in reference to DDP's title reign. He used one word, manufactured.
Yes.
Isn't that...
I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that, and maybe yours, Brain.
Hey, to be honest with you, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the question was, what do you think about Diamond Page's title reign as WCW champion? And Booker T responded with the word manufactured. I was wondering if you could maybe give any insight on that, or maybe Dave or Brian.
I mean, no one wins a title; it's given to them. Every title that someone has is handed to them. Super Bowl they win.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
In wrestling, it's handed to them. So it was manufactured by someone that wanted Damon Dallas to have it.
Yeah. I mean, I sensed it was, that was a very interesting segment, where the gold belt, the old WCW belt, and they talked about, so they had different guys talk about different champions. They talked about Dusty Rhodes, Bill Goldberg, Diamond Dallas Page. Who else did they talk about? Did they all run down? Hogan.
Got Arquette.
They never mentioned Arquette. They never mentioned Russo.
How many people had it that week?
They had, that one year. I mean, they were changing it every week. Remember?
And I was just taken back when we were talking. I'm not going to be mad anymore about this. I'll tell you why. Because I got great money for
Page. Who else did they talk about? Did they all run down? Hogan.
Got Arquette.
They never mentioned Arquette. They never mentioned Russo.
How many people had it that week?
They had, that one year. I mean, they were changing it every week. Remember?
And I was just taken back when we were talking. I'm not going to be mad anymore about this. I'll tell you why. Because I got great money for 6 years. I got health insurance, and I get to watch some of the funniest people in the world operate. I'm alive. I survived. I made it through all that time, and they supplied me with millions and millions of laughs. So everybody else out there, I apologize if I made fun of you. You made fun of yourself.
Now what about us? You know how many hours of life all three of us, wasted on some of that TV?
At least some of it was funny.
No, some of it was good, and some of it was good for...
I mean, Bobby will tell stories for the rest of his life about this stuff, and they'll all be funny.
That's true.
You feel?
Oh, yeah, and I'll tell it in Connie for the rest of my life. You tell me is that it?
Chris, as far as what Booker T said about Page, that was definitely a knock there, where I think Booker T felt that Page...
You know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. He came up and gave me a bottle of champagne one night for putting him over on TV. No one's ever done that before. I usually get a half of a six-pack drink. He was just... the boys thought he was Eric Bischoff's friend and neighbor, and Eric Bischoff did it for him as a favor.
And Eric pretty much said that last night. I mean, which I can't say I was surprised.
You want to go for fast money now?
No, last night when they asked Eric about it, Eric goes, he was my friend, and I just wanted it to work, But it was like almost an admission that it wasn't really the best of ideas, and I think Booker probably, in his own way, resentment. And I mean, there was a little bit there when they were talking about Goldberg.
Booker, show me you got some stones. Say it like I did. It was given to him by Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
Big deal. Were you scared of the guy?
Anything else, Chris?
Yeah, Brain, I wanted to get your thoughts on Vern Gagne and retiring with the title.
Well, it's his title, so he's got the right to do whatever he wants. I don't blame him for doing that. He built the AWA. He was the champion there. He made a lot of stars. He brought in a lot of stars. He made a lot of people happy. He made some people unhappy. Any boss will do that. But if he wants to retire with his title, it's his right to do it.
All right. Well, thanks, Brain.
Thank you.
Okay.
How did you enjoy doing that segment on Confidential?
Oh, I loved it. It was fun. It was professionally done. It didn't have like WCW where they had a hamster and a squirrel on the treadmill trying to keep the electricity going. They really had a camera. and it was fun. It was like they asked me, would I going to do WrestleMania was 17, the Gimmick Battle Royal?
Oh, in Houston, yeah.
I said it felt like, at one time you played on the Yankees and you sent you to the Mud Hens, and now you get to bet one time more at Yankee Stadium.
What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts as far as the product that night? Because WrestleMania 17 was pretty much kind of like a lot of people would say WrestleMania 3. Like WrestleMania 3 may have been the high point of the 80s Hulk Hogan era, and that was certainly the high point of that Rock Steve Austin era. Compare those two. Compare 1987 and 2001. Going like being at both shows.
Well, it was different because in '83 I was involved in the main event. And in Houston, I just did a Gimmick Battle Royal. So I didn't watch the other matches. I wasn't there for the build-up of the whole production of the program over the weeks and months it took. And I really didn't watch that much of Austin's match with The Rock. I watched with old Vince, but I'm sure that happened many times in Connecticut. But really, it was just the people that were there that were very kind to me and nice to me, and even when McMahon came up to me in Oakland and thanked us for coming and everything, it was really done professionally. But as the product was, I really didn't watch it.
Okay, let's go to Jack in Boston. Jack, what's going on?
Hi, Dave, Brian, Bobby. Real pleasure to talk to you guys this evening. First off, for Bobby, what I've noticed recently in commentary in the business is kind of less of an emotional involvement from the heel color commentator. What was big in the early 90s, which was when I watched Flair in his run, he would be so strongly behind Flair that you'd almost literally have a heart attack at the announce position when he'd be close to winning or losing. And that is something that's really diminished recently, and especially in terms of Jerry Lawler, who basically has no emotional involvement behind anybody in the whole show. Did you start to see that kind of diminishment in your career, Bobby, as you went through WCW, where the heel color commentator basically didn't have as defined a role anymore?
Well, no, because I was the heel commentator there. And the reason I was so much behind Flair was because of the way I worked my whole career. I wanted to work in the ring as a coward and a manager and manage like a wrestler. My man was getting the crap kicked out of him. I want to react because I have a financial investment in this guy. He's my man. You ever see a guy at ringside with Muhammad Ali? How they're in the corner and they're moving back and forth? I got away from the tuxedos and the canes and the sunglasses and all that other junk. Now, if I really, really, really have an investment in this guy, I'm going to care about him. And that's what I always tried to show on the air. I always tried to shoot as much as I could across the air.
That's tremendous. Also, regarding the very memorable 1995 Clash incident, Clash of the Champions.
Oh, with Brian Pillman?
Oh, yeah. Any insight on that?
Oh, and I said the F word?
Yeah.
You said the F word.
What happens is when you do TV, you don't look into the ring and call the action. First of all, I don't call action. Monsoon called the action. Tony Schiavone tried to call the action. little man. And then I'm the color commentator. I just pick up the slack and say things that are stupid or funny or incited or something, whatever. And you have to watch the monitor, because if you watch the ring, you may see stuff they're not shooting. You have to commentate on what they're shooting on the camera. So I wasn't watching. They were all outside the ring, and I'm watching the monitor, and Pillman came behind me and pulled my gun around my shoulders. Well, I broke my neck in '83, and I finally had I thought it was a fan that jumped over. And when your coat's around your arms, and you have a bad neck, and the guy's behind you, it's kind of like a bad honeymoon. You're helpless. So that's when I said, what the F? And I started to walk out, and I thought, wait a minute, I have a job to do. This isn't that important. So I went back and talked to Pillman afterwards, and, he said, I didn't know. I said, that's no problem. He was a nice guy. I didn't have a problem with him. It was just a reaction thing.
Okay, we've got to head to a break right now. We're going to come back with more with Bobby Heenan right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and Bobby Heenan, probably the greatest wrestling manager ever lived, because I don't think there's going to be another one. Maybe. We'll see. Not at this rate.
That commercial, Chaser?
Yeah, we always talk about that one.
30-day guarantee. If you had pounds for 30 days, you don't need Chaser, you need a Smith & Wesson.
Oh, my God.
Fish commercial. You want to catch fish? No. I just want to carry 200 pounds of earthworms in my pocket and not catch nothing. And fry my keister in the water. No. I don't want to catch a fish.
Let's go to Jonathan.
Let's
go to Jonathan in Savannah, Georgia. Jonathan, what's up?
What's going on, guys? I had two questions for you, Dave, you and Brian.
Okay.
One was, why are Jamie Noble and Tajiri, and also I could even put the Hurricane in there, wrestling on Velocity when I thought SmackDown is supposed to be the home of the Cruiserweights and Noble is the Cruiserweight champion?
They probably just ran out of time. Ran out of time on SmackDown that week because they had to do a 30-minute wedding.
Okay, but why would Mark Henry, besides that they got to pay him like way too much money to be Mark, so even wrestled? Like, why is he getting TV time as opposed to?
I don't know I can't give you like any kind of an answer. So you have the answer yourself.
Yeah.
They were the ones who got bumped. There is a movement. The SmackDown guys, the SmackDown writing crew wants Velocity to be a better show, and I think they want a main event with like good wrestling matches, and that was a really good match.
I like Madison. I was just wondering.
Nobody ever watches it.
Yeah.
They never tell anybody to watch.
They never tell anybody to watch. See, there you go. There's the problem right there. They want to have better matches. They are booking better quality matches on Velocity, but when they never on the A shows ever talk about Velocity and tell you, like this is going to be there, then it really doesn't matter if the match is good or not because they're a 0.8 rating anyway.
Okay. And my other question was, I think it's probably going to be the same answer. Why was Big Show in the main event?
It's because their depth is so weak, and they didn't think things through, and they don't plan things out far enough in advance because that's right. If Big Show is going to be in the main event, why do you have him laid out by Tommy Dreamer the week before?
Right.
If you're going to have him in the main event the next week, and the thing is no, they don't plan things out far. They sit there on Monday and they're spending all their time trying to come up with a way to get lesbians over, and then it's like by the way, it is a wrestling show and we do need a main event.
Which is exactly what Bischoff said in that first interview where he just goes, that takes care of the sports part of the show.
I know. And then afterwards, in that match, especially when Big Show got out, but that was a very good match, the one with Jericho and Van Dam and Show. And the ratings dropped because they spent the whole show building up the lesbians thing, and they're going like, but we really had a good main event. How come everyone's saying it's a bad show? And it's because all they did was talk about one thing, and that thing wasn't so good. Right. And people tuned out before that main event. But no, I have no clue why Big Show was in that main event because I think it just took the main event down.
Yeah, they wouldn't think of putting Booker T. Can they not tell he's?
I think that they
his own thing going.
Because Booker T's got a different program. That's all. It's not like they think Big Show's better than Booker T. It's just they had that Booker T. They wanted him in there with Regal and Bradshaw and that crew.
Okay.
Doing the Un-Americans versus the Americans.
Okay.
Keeping you guys up.
Anything else?
Actually, I got another quick one. What are they going to do with Billy and Chuck now?
I'm assuming feud with the Island Boys at least for the next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, they're on different shows.
Yep. Yeah. How are they going to do? Because they're on different shows. I guess we'll find out tomorrow night. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Bobby, speaking of that Battle Royal, what were you thinking when you saw the Iron Sheik get in the ring?
Well, I thought the last 14 years of my life. I'm just glad he made it down there so we didn't have to give him a heart massage.
Oh, my God. Let's go to Paul in Boca Raton. Paul, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Going good.
I wanted to ask Bobby, how close was he with Andre the Giant, and was he as notoriously moody as I've heard on shoot interviews people mention?
Yeah, he was with him. First of all, I was the only manager he ever had. And if he didn't like you, first of all, there's only two great workers in this business. And that's Andre the Giant, because if he didn't want to have a match, there's no way you'd have a match. Nothing you could possibly do. Believe me. Nothing you could do. I don't care who you were. Nothing you could do. I saw him sit on the Iron Sheik's back, facing north, with the Sheik facing south, and he had his arms like a rowboat. Believe me, nothing you could do. And the other one is Hulk Hogan, because he put more keisters in those wooden seats than anybody you've ever seen.
What was your relationship like with Hogan?
Andre and I had a great relationship. He didn't like people. He didn't ways. Are you Andre the Giant? No, I'm Willie Shoemaker, the Giant. How big are you? How tall are you? He didn't like anything like that. He loved to be in the dressing room. He loved to take all his laundry off and sit there and play cribbage with the guys and drink his wine and relax. That was his home. That really was his home. He was safe there.
Like with Hogan?
Andre and I had a great relationship. He didn't like people. He didn't ways. Are you Andre the Giant? No, I'm Willie Shoemaker, the Giant. How big are you? How tall are you? He didn't like anything like that. He loved to be in the dressing room. He loved to take all his laundry off and sit there and play cribbage with the guys and drink his wine and relax. That was his home. That really was his home. He was safe there. He wasn't scared of anything, but he felt comfortable there because he could trust the boys that he worked with him. I mean, everybody looked at this man. I followed Big Show to the airport one day and Nash, and I saw about every 15, 20 person would turn and look at him. Andre go through the airport, everybody would stop. Life.
What do you think was the difference?
Being a freak.
Pardon?
He just didn't like people treating him like he was a freak.
That's probably what he thought, yeah. I mean, we're big, and, you know, I'm not that big. I don't know what he went through. And he knew he was going to die because they told him you had the giant disease, which is your organs don't grow like your body does. So it's like putting a Volkswagen engine in a truck. You know, you can move it, but it won't move it for long. And they told him he wouldn't live to be 50. So that's on his mind the whole time. Plus, nothing he can do in cabs, rooms, nothing fits him. Sure, he made an enormous amount of money. He loved to be home at his ranch outside of Charlotte, about 70 miles, and he loved to be with the boys and drink. But to go out and stuff, now he has his own places picked where the owners of the bar knew him, and they put him in a side corner, and we sat there and we'd have our dinners and talk. And no, he was okay if he liked you. If he didn't like you, you knew it real quick. Remember Uncle Elmer?
Oh, Stan Frazier, yeah.
Yeah. He came up to me one day. He says, "How come the Giant don't like me?" I said, "Well, how do you know he don't like you?" He said, "He told me so." I said, "I would stay away from him, Mr. Frazier, before you wind up like Joe. Frazier's down. Frazier's down."
One other question.
He didn't like you. He didn't like you.
One other question about Stud and Andre, and you mentioned that he was jealous of Stud, or vice versa.
Andre didn't like big guys. Girls with big boobs don't like other girls with big boobs.
He got along with
guys that are good looking don't like other guys that are good looking. It's just that way. Andre didn't like big people. And Stud wasn't 7 feet tall. He was 6'9", maybe. Andre was 7'3", 7'5". He just didn't like Stud calling himself the Giant. Like you guys were talking earlier before I came on the show about the cruiserweight guys and this and that. Believe me, guys like Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Jericho, those are some of the greatest talent shows. People only want to see big guys for some reason. You go to the zoo, you don't want to see the monkey, you want to see the elephant. You want to see big guys. Stud and Andre on paper worked. In the matches it didn't. Because God bless John Stud, he just couldn't take bumps. And they wanted to see Andre press slam him and do big bumps to him. And people just, second time around didn't do that good. First time did. My God, Andre the Giant, Big John Stud. We cut his hair, this and that. But you still have to get out there and entertain the people. And I don't care how good these guys are, the cruiserweights. People want to see big guys do big things. They don't want to see go-kart smash each other. You know what I mean?
Thanks a lot.
Okay, let's go to Tony in Richfield, Connecticut. Tony, what's going on?
Hey, I just had a quick question for Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I just want to congratulate you on your book. I couldn't put it down. I think my favorite part was when you mentioned when Kurt Henning's son got the runs after taking the IcoPro stuff.
IcoPoop.
But anyway, I just wanted to ask you real quick. I know you have a lot of stories in you and a lot of more stories. Would you ever think of writing a sequel?
Well, when I did write the book, I went to Minneapolis. I live in Clearwater, and I drove to Minneapolis to 9/11 on like the 20th of September. And I drove up there and I met with my writer, and we sat in the hotel room and he put the recorder on. And for 3 days, we did it from 10 o'clock in the morning until only 5 o'clock at night. And we have 600 pages.
Wow.
So, but nobody wants to, no publisher wants to give you 600 pages. It's like War and Peace. It's just too big.
Wait till Bret Hart's book comes out.
I have enough for 3 or 4 more books and a dirty porn tape.
We got to head to another break right now. We're going to come back with more with Bobby Heenan right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. And, of course, we're here today with Bobby Heenan, and we're here every Sunday from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time. One of the things that I read in your book was a story about the night that Otto Vance won the AWA title from Nick Bockwinkel. And, of course, you were managing Nick Bockwinkel. And it reminded me of, like, working in WCW. And, you know, why don't you tell a little bit about that story? And do you have any idea why they did that to you?
Well, I don't know. What happened was, Otto Vance, he was this big 400-pound Austrian guy that, like Swiss alveoling pants, and a little hat with a bunch of, like awards on it, like he worked for Amway. And he was just a big fat slob. And what happened was, I think Vern could a deal with the guy where if he beat Nick, he'd be the champion, and Vern and his wife, he'd pay their trip to Austria, and he would go manage Nick because he was a former champion. So I never got to go, which was okay. But they didn't tell me the finish that night. And it's in the book. And it's one of those lousy finishes where you kick the top rope, you both go down. 1, 2, one guy raises his shoulder, the other guy don't. When I saw that, 1, 2, 3, Nick had lost the belt, I jumped in the ring, and I went after Larry Wasowski, the referee, which was Crusher's son. Not to hit him, not to yell at him. I don't care who wins the belt. It's entertainment. We're not the world champion. There is no world champion of anything. So I jumped in, and Wally Carbo jumped in the ring and said, don't hit him, don't hit him. I said, why would I hit him? And we got back to the dressing room, and Nick was groggy. He said he hit his head. I said, BS, you didn't hit your head.
I can't believe
that. When he got up, he grabbed a second. Well, Vern had given him the finish earlier that day or that night or I don't know, and he said, don't tell anybody. So Nick didn't tell anybody. This was Nick's decision. But, you know, people don't understand something. I was a manager. I know I wasn't a manager. I was a wrestler as much as anybody else was. Anybody in this business is in the wrestling business is to entertain us. And sometimes I would take more bumps at the end of a match and get more juice than the guys I manage. And we go back to the dressing room, and the guy my man worked with would shake his hand and say, thank you. What about me? I never got as much as the man I managed because they said, well, he works and you don't. What do you think I do out there, you moron? Civilization, we have no disability, we have no profit sharing, nothing. And they never told me the finish that night. They double-crossed. No, they didn't double-cross me, they just didn't tell me. And I really felt offended by that. I told Nick this.
It's like it's hard for me to believe that, like, I mean, like,
I'm told. I've been in the business 40 years.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's like I could have seen this in WCW, okay, because that was WCW and they were trying to fool the wrestlers for, God only knows what. But in the AWA where it was, I just can't imagine that, like they wouldn't tell Bobby Heenan the finish when they're changing the world title. No. Whatever reason. I can't even come up with a good reason.
Because Vern Gagne was really into being real. He didn't want anyone to know anything. And he probably didn't tell Ilo. He probably told Nick, you're dropping the belt tonight, and don't tell anybody. So Nick didn't. Nick was obedient.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the way he was. If I was in Nick's spot, I would tell my partner. I don't hold this against Nick. I'm just telling the truth. I'm being honest. I'm 58 almost. I've had cancer. What are you going to do to me? I work for Nick Goulis. I've been in the ring of Moose Chillock. What can you do to me? What the hell can you do to me? I knew 3 girls at an all-night gas station. There's nothing you can do to me. So that's what it is. They just didn't tell me because Vern told him not to tell anyone. And there was 2 dressing rooms that night. There was a referee, Marty, Blair's, I think, was the referee. I'm not sure. But you didn't go back and forth because it was in a building where people would see you walk back and forth. They just didn't tell me. And I really, really felt insulted. And I still do. I like Nick, and I like Vern. I was in a match with him one night in Winnipeg, and he stood on my knee. Tried to stand on my knee in the corner. And you just don't stand on a guy's knee unless you want to break a guy's knee. So I stay away from that big tub of lard.
Let's go to Dan.
Bobby, it's an honor to talk to you. I've watched you a long, long time, man. You were one of the best managers in the history of wrestling.
Thank you, my friend.
Got a couple quick questions for you. One, whatever happened to that world title that they were going to give Andre the Giant if he would have beaten Hulk Hogan? Did they give him that title just as a special trophy, or what did they do?
The title? You mean the belt?
Yeah, they gave, like, you guys were sitting around on a conference table with Hogan and Andre, and you said, if Andre wins the title, how is he going to wear this little championship belt? You got to make him a
bigger belt. Right?
Yeah, what's that?
And they made a bigger belt.
Yeah, whatever happened to that title belt?
Well, there's only one title. That was the WWF title. It can be 18 belts and say WWF. That went back to the office.
Okay, I didn't know if they were...
Maybe Vince gave it to Andre. I don't know. I really don't know what happened to it.
Okay. And another goofy...
They made a bigger belt.
Yeah, whatever happened to that title belt?
Well, there's only one title. That was the WWF title. It can be 18 belts and say WWF. That went back to the office.
Okay, I didn't know if they were...
Maybe Vince gave it to Andre. I don't know. I really don't know what happened to it.
Okay. And another goofy question for you. When you were on Primetime Wrestling and you'd be on the phone, who were you on the phone with?
Nobody.
Another question is, who's Woody?
Woody was the producer at WCW on some of the shows, and he's talented. He's a good guy. And Woody there's a lot of good people at WCW. There really were. But Woody was one of the guys that was a good friend of mine, and he was talented, and he put the shows together, and he was some of the shows. He was a good guy.
It's an honor to talk to you, man. I enjoyed all your work on Primetime Wrestling. Hilarious stuff. I hope they come out with a deep...
Well, I hope I get paid.
And like I said, it's an honor to talk to you, man.
Thank you, my friend.
Hope to talk to you again soon.
You know, when we're talking about Chicago, of course, you wrestled there and managed there about a million times. But the one story that I remember, I guess this was in the 70s, I'm sure you remember it a lot better than me. What were you thinking when that guy started shooting?
I didn't. I didn't know somebody was shooting. The finish was Nick slams Vern. right by the corner. And the referee goes 1, 2, and Vern puts his foot out. And the referee hits 3. Then the referee raises up and sees Vern's foot out, right? I jump up, Nick and I hug. The referee says, continue. Nick doesn't see it. I don't see it. Vern drop kicks Nick in the back, into me. I go to the floor. Nick goes back in the ring. Vern tops him 1, 2, 3. When I jumped on the apron, I heard pop, pop, like that. But in the amphitheater in those days, you always had a bunch of rival people that were fighting each other. They would get each other's shoulders with sticks and stuff and fight each other. So I just figured it was just noise. I went back to the dressing room, and I went back to the entrance. I remember going back, there wasn't that heat like you had. There wasn't that many people fighting who wanted to kill you. Because the amphitheater was a bad, rough place at one time. And I walked in the dressing room door there, and Ray said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "They just shot 5 people." And I said, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And I guess when I jumped up on the apron to congratulate Nick, a guy in the crowd said, "I'll get him down." And he put a gun on the guy's shoulder in front of him, and he shot down to the ring. And he only shot 2, I understand, but he shot 5 people. And I didn't know a thing about that. The next show there, I was in a match with, it was me and Nikolai Volkov, who was Boris Brezhnev in those days, against Ivan Pesky and Chris Taylor.
Oh, God.
That's like going to the chicken ranch with gout of the... So I got in the ring, I yelled out, "If you're going to shoot me, do it now. It'll be easier." So what I have to go through. And I told Vern after that, I said, "Vern, I don't want to be involved in any finishes for a while. I'm really concerned." And, that I didn't mind people throwing things on me or punching or fighting. I didn't mind that at all. This was different. And that's what went through my mind.
Let's go to Chris in Fort Wayne, another city that Bobby wrestled in a million times.
Hey, Dave, Brian, Mr. Heenan, it's an honor to talk to you. Up here in Fort Wayne, a little before my time, but I had a ride when I was 5 years old to see Bruiser and his crew. I just wanted to know, I know I've heard you describe Bruiser as a real miserable guy, just overall. Just wanted to know if you wanted to expand any on that. Did he treat the boys badly, or?
Well, he's not here right now. He's dead.
Right.
And I don't know how he treated. I can't say how he treated the boys because I can only judge by me. Him and I in the ring, he was fine. He was as smooth as velvet. Outside the ring, I have no respect for the man for a lot of different reasons, and it's nothing I really care to go into with anybody. It's nothing to do with the wrestling business. It's something personal.
Right.
And that's just the way it is.
That's understandable. My other question is, I don't get involved with any programs with Bruno in your early days in WWF before he left after the split with Vince, but your thoughts on Bruno out of the ring and just, overall as the announcer, did everyone know he was unhappy in the back during those final days?
Oh, Bruno's always been unhappy. I mean, I did an interview one day and Bruno came up to me about a week ago. He says, "What are you talking about my family for?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You said something about my family." Well, Orndorff and I were wrestling Bruno and David in Pittsburgh, his son. And I did an interview at Oakland. I said, "You realize Mr. and Mrs. San Martino have never discussed divorce." And Oakland said, "Well, why would they?" I said, "Exactly. Nobody wanted." Bruno thought I was knocking his family. To be mad or anything, no, he was fine. He was okay. There's a lot of bitter people in this world, and maybe he has a right to be. I don't know his life.
Right. Well, I look forward to reading your book, and I was very happy to hear about your recovery, and we'll keep on rooting for you. Thanks.
Well, thank you, my friend.
Yeah, we've got to head to it with our last break. We're going to come back with more with Bobby Heenan right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Welcome to the final segment of our show here on Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly and Bobby Heenan. Bobby, I never ago when you met your brother for the first time in your life, and where did the background of all that come in?
Well, I was born in 1944, and my dad was gone, and my mom said that they just split up and left, and it never bothered me. And I just didn't care. I wasn't mad or anything. And then when I got older, I see all these 800 search, and you can find your relatives and this and that. So I had my wife, I said, check this out. Let me see. I just want to picture my dad. Maybe he worked at some place where he had to have a badge with his picture on it. So she called this 800 search. We found out that he had an address in Vegas. So I was in Vegas with Mike Tenay and his wife, and they were going up to their cabin up in Utah, and we were going to stay in Vegas. I said, let's drive by this address. So we drove by the address. I said, no, we're not going to go in now. I said, there's a kid on the porch playing the banjo. We're not going to go touch it. This is deliverance. So we waited a couple minutes, and we went to the door and knocked on the door. My wife did. I said, make sure you put your butt on the hood of the car so whoever comes out I can see. And this woman came out, which kind of could have looked like me. And then this guy came out, and he looked at me and kind of looked and turned away. And then they came back, and my wife was working with them to try to find a street, Fernham Street. And he brought a map out and tried to help her and everything. So I said, man, these are nice people. I said, they tried to help. I said, I'm going to go in and tell them what I know about my father and everything. This may be my family. So my wife said, let's go to Denny's first and have breakfast. I said, wait, I've come this far at 50 years. I'm going to choke now on a bone. I'm hit by a car. So I knocked on the door, and the man came to the door, and I said my name, and I showed him my passport, my birth certificate, and everything. We sat down and talked for about an hour. He never once said, now, wait a minute. This can't be. Never said nothing. Listen to me. I got through with my whole speech and everything. And he said, well, welcome my brother Jim and my other brother Bob, who is the real Bobby Heenan, who's in Vegas. And my brother John lives 7 miles from me here in Florida that I never knew about. And they're the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. And they're really, really nice people. So I told my wife, I said, an hour ago, I didn't have a family. Now I got 85 gifts to buy.
But that, I gotta say, that's one thing you can say positive about WCW because you were in Vegas at that time.
Well, if regardless of that, I would still have gone there with the address to see. Probably not that time, but maybe a little later on. It was during Halloween Havoc. It makes sense. I'd find my family during Halloween Havoc.
Robbie, thank you so much. I want to remind everyone you can get the book, Bobby the Brain, at pretty much any bookstore or at Amazon.com. Bobby, it was a pleasure to have you on. We'll be talking to you soon.
David, thank you so much, guys.
Okay, you're very welcome, and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back next Sunday night. We'll see you then.